Hello everyone, to those of you that are joining us live, we're going to be getting started really shortly. So we're going to be cutting to a Zoom meeting soon. You'll be able to ask questions in the chat and we'll be able to answer them through our meeting. So thanks so much, and we'll see you later. Hope you guys enjoy the session.
Hey, Mallory.
Yes, Nick.
Is there someone letting people in from a waiting room, or is there no waiting room set up?
There's no waiting room set
Oh,
up.
okay. Okay, it sounds like there's a few people waiting, but I'm not sure what they're waiting for.
I think that has something to do with the live stream, to be honest.
Okay.
So perhaps we could get their email and then we can just send them out the Zoom link. Would that be an alternative option in this case?
Yep.
Do you mind taking the lead on that so we can start, Nick?
Yep.
Thank you so much, Nick. Really appreciate it. Mount Norquay, skiing, Lady McDonald, Majestic. I adore all kinds of outdoor activities like hiking, skiing, and rock climbing. That's from Cheslin. Peter Lougheed, Provincial Park, Bears, Majestic Mountains, challenging hikes. Paddling Raging Rivers from Sean Green. So these are all incredible responses to why the Canadian Rockies creates such a sense of place. And that is picking up where we left off, which is the last workshop. Alex, next slide, please. So just a couple housekeeping, turn your microphones off, turn your recording off unless we ask your mom or dad or permission, or unless you're willing to fill out a FOIP form at the end of this session. Just rename yourself if you are a student that is joining us, so we don't have to deal with that anonymity issue. And chat is zero tolerance. Nick, one of my colleagues, and Cheryl are going to be monitoring the chat. So please just stick to the questions or comments that relate to the presentation. Awesome. Next slide, please. So if you weren't at the first workshop, I'm Mallory. I'm the youth coordinator for the Biosphere Institute. We aim to empower environmental leadership and action on issues affecting the Canadian Rockies, with a particular focus on elevating Indigenous knowledge, climate change, wildlife, and sustainability. Fun fact about me for this workshop, which is never actually very fun, is that I grew up in Banff. So that slide above me shows my hometown, and I've hiked up Cascade Mountain only once, but I've gone up the Sleeping Buffalo more times than I can remember. So the most important part of these workshops is our land acknowledgement. It's about connecting to the land and Indigenous peoples who have called this land their home for millennia. So each of our committee students are practicing doing a land acknowledgement. And today I would like to bring Ava to the table, and she will be giving our land acknowledgement.
Yes, hello. Bonjour, Oki, and Abba Weftesh. So my name is Ava Vanderbeek, and I'm a grade 11 student in Central Memorial High School at Calgary, Alberta. And so I've been working with the Canadian Rockies Youth Network for almost a year now as the student representative and student outreach. And in the past year, I've had the pleasure of rediscovering my Indigenous roots. And I'd like to take a moment to share with you my own version of a land acknowledgement. So my cousin Jesse Bissell, wrote a book called From the Ashes. And when I was reading, I found many similarities to him and his story. So he wrote many things on the difficulties of being homeless and Métis, and on his, and surprisingly, my heritage. So it was really hard for me to read so many details and horrors that faced my family, but it helped me step into my own heritage. So after this, I discovered a young girl by the name of Marion Morissette, and she was a cook for Louis Riel, which was her cousin. And as the Canadian General Middleton opened fire on the town of Bachelet, where the Northwest Resistance was staying, it was said that Riel threw Morissette out the window, saving her life. And so that 16-year-old cook ended up being my distant grandmother. And so for many years, my Métis culture was a source of shame. No one really talked about it, or no one was proud to be a part of it. And generational trauma hit my family really hard as suicide, mental health, and homelessness traumatized my close relatives, one even being my own mother. But this network and the idea of reconciliating with the land and the culture has helped me step into my Indigenous roots and made me realize that my culture should come as a sense of pride. I've been introduced to many people similar to me, as we are all trying to rediscover our roots and see our heritage in a new light. As an Indigenous youth, I believe that it is high importance that we recognize the land we are placed on for all those people like me trying to discover our culture, and for the Indigenous people, and as well for the youth learning about the First Nations culture. So I would like to honor our agreements and honor our land that gives us life and well-being. So I'm speaking to you from Treaty 7 territory, where the Blackfoot Confederacy of Siksika, Kanaya, and Pikaniki nations, as well as the Stoney Nakoda nations, the Tsuut'ina Nation, and the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3, and the settlers of Western Canada coexist within the land. Thank you for giving me a chance to share my story and for taking a moment to appreciate the Indigenous lives around us. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Ava. That was a great land acknowledgement. It's really meaningful, and yeah, it's very important that we continue to acknowledge the land and kind of the connection that it fosters between us and, I guess, our future generations. So now, I guess, Alex, you can flip to the next slide. Okay, I think, is Mallory here? I can continue and go on to introduce Daryl Cooney.
Sorry, guys.
Okay, there you go.
I have no idea what is going on with our internet today.
Oh, hey, it's Ben.
Were you guys able to continue?
Yes. Yeah, we're just right here right now.
Okay, perfect.
You
Sorry
gonna
about that.
No.
So thank you, Ava. I'm sad that I missed that. By the end of the workshop pre-summit series, we want you to be Canadian Rockies youth ambassadors. We want to educate you, engage you, and elevate your voices on issues affecting our mountain spaces, but also prepare you to take action at the 2021 Canadian Rockies Youth Summit, May 12th, 12th to 14th. So we hope by the end of this workshop, you're going to understand land management and what stakeholders mean, and why elevating youth voices as valid stakeholders in land management decisions is so important, and also one of our goals. The Canadian Rockies is kind of a biosphere for taking large, overwhelming issues and bringing them down to a local level so you can understand and care about these issues. So most importantly, we want to connect you with the land. We want you to be ambassadors of the land, and we want you to start thinking about taking action to help the land. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Ben in to introduce Daryl Cooney, who will be talking a little bit about the bison and all his relations.
Okay, yeah, so I guess, Alex, you can flip to the next slide. Great. So I'm going to be introducing Daryl Cooney. Daryl is a hunter, a dancer, and a storyteller from the Stoney Nakoda Nations. He spoke to us at our last workshop where we watched his film Hunter, or Yameyitha. And together we listened to his stories about how he stays connected to the land through spirit animals, hunting, and being together with your family and friends. As he said last time, the cure to disconnect is connecting with the land. So Daryl's here with us once again to talk more about Indigenous ways of knowing, why it's important to include the Indigenous perspective in our land management decisions, and why everybody has a role to play in conserving our land. So please join me through Zoom by welcoming Daryl once again. Thank you, Daryl, for coming.
Thank you, Ishnish, Benjamin, and Ishnish, Ava, for the land acknowledgement. I had a good opportunity a few years ago to share the mic with your cousin there, Jesse, at the Walrus Talks in Calgary. He's a very inspirational speaker. Really loved enjoying hearing his life story during that time. Ambo Astich, everyone, Ambo Newa Stitch, Kano, Wapa. Wanted to say good day in my language, and that today is a beautiful day. And I said, welcome to the snow, a nice blanket of snow that we have outside here in Morley. I just wanted to spend this next kind of 10 minutes sharing with you the importance of, we say Tatanga, which is the buffalo in our language, and Minto Oya Devi, which is all my relations. And this really, when we talk about land management, our philosophy, our way of life, and our way of believing in the land and in all my relations, which is, the animal nation, the trees, the water nations, the mountain nations, all my relations means the smallest insect that's outside your house right now or your school, or even the smallest pebble that's outside that contributes to this way of life. And we, as a indigenous person, Estonian Nakota, we try not to manage, but we try to live together in harmony, understand each other's gifts and the abilities that they give to us to help each other to live life beautifully. And that's why I wanted to talk about the buffalo, because in our story, Estonian Nakota people, we're called the Tanka Oyade, which is the Buffalo Nation. And Estonian Nakota is very unique because we have relatives in South Dakota and across the Canadian prairies of the Dakota, Nakota, and Lakota people. And buffaloes are roaming in the mountains, but where we are, Estonian Nakota, we also have elk and moose and deer and bighorn sheep that we share that gift with. Well, for many in the prairies, they don't have moose or bighorn sheep, and so we kind of have this relationship with these animals, and particularly the buffalo. And this story was about a long time ago. They used to say that when we were new to this land, when we were created in this land, that we were very, very pure. Today, Stony Nakota, the way we name ourselves is Iarhe Nakota, which is mountain Nakota, but also we say Iyithka. People, especially elders, will ask, are you Yithka, or do you speak Yithka? Which means, do you speak pure, or are you pure? And this saying goes back to that time where when we were first created in this world, we were very, very pure, just like a newborn baby brought into this world. They're very pure. They're not exposed to things that we tend to pick up as we get older, negative experiences and habits like gossiping and creating bad situations for others and even ourselves. And so when we were during this time, when we were Iyithka, when we were pure, they used to say that we could talk to the animals, to the trees, to the water, and we would we can understand each other very, very strongly. But over time, we've lost that. But during this time, when we came to this earth, when we were created, we didn't know how to live here quite strongly and sustainably as we had for thousands of years. And this was, pretty early on. And so the creator, we say that Dewa Ka, the great mystery, he's kind of everywhere and everything. And we ask the creator to help us, Oshimanawa Omangya, to have pity on us, that we don't know anything. And so the creator, without us knowing, we say that he had a meeting. He called all the animal nations together, the animal council, to have a meeting. And all of the animals are present, the birds, the water nations, the animals from the sea, the buffalo, the moose, the elk, the mouse, and all of these other animals were present in the circle. And the creator asked that a very special people, the Stony Nakota people, are in the mountains and they're struggling. They don't know how to live, and they're they need help. And the creator asked the animal nation who of them can help the creator to help us, the Stoney Nakoda. And all the animals right away looked at each other, and they were scared. They were all, everyone, there was a big tension in the room because everyone knew us as human beings are very powerful. And, sometimes that power, we take advantage of it. And the animals knew this about us. And so they were scared. They didn't want to help us right away. They didn't come jumping forward saying, I will. And as all this tension was created, the buffalo stepped forward. He sensed all the animals were scared, and the buffalo stepped in the middle and let all the animals relax. And he said, I'll be the one, to the creator. He said, there's 166 ways that the Stoney Nakoda people can utilize me, through clothing, through healing, through tools, through way of life. And all of these 166 ways will contribute to that. And so when this agreement happened, the Stoney Nakoda were very, very blessed, and we were happy that the buffalo came and shared and taught us, and when the buffalo approached us, they said that the buffalo transformed into a woman, and it was a woman in a very beautiful white buckskin dress that we call the white buffalo calf woman. And she was the one who taught us all of these different ways. And there's so many stories on how, how things were created. And that, kind of goes to, my drum here, that is one of those things that she taught us. There's many stories of different cultures from the Cree and Blackfoot, how drums were brought into them. And this one here particularly is a very special drum of mine that was made from an elk. And it was harvested by my brother, Gentle Grizzly, who was in the video with me, and my other brother, Mismuk Spomakin. He has a Blackfoot name named Longtime Pipe Holder that made this drum for me. And me, Tatanka Wagichi, gets to sing on it and tell stories on it. And for me, when I graduated high school, I wanted to see a lot of this land. I wanted to travel. And so I ended up traveling to many different countries, in Africa, down in Latin America. And this drum came with me. And during the times of my struggling as an Indigenous person in this world where nobody knows what Indigenous peoples are, I struggled a lot explaining, even at the same time trying to learn about myself, who I was. And I would take this drum and I would sing on it whenever I was struggling in these places. And after I was done singing, I was reminded of my purpose and why I wanted to go and see different parts of the world, and why I wanted to learn as much as I can to be like that buffalo and bring knowledge back to the community, to help, young people in my community. And so this drum here, is a part of all my relations. This elk that was roaming in the mountains, gave his life to my brother, knowing that, we say that when an animal gives his life to you, that he knows what's going to happen. And, for example, this elk, with his natural powers, his medicine, we would say, he knew that he was going to be utilized in a good way, that he was going to be treated well through the process, that nothing was going to be wasted, and that he's going to travel the world with a young boy, which was me, and that he was going to provide a lot of healing to me in my journey. And so today I give tobacco to this drum. I smudge my drum. I pray for that elk that gave his life so that I could sing and help others with it as well. And so that's how all my relations really goes into it, is that we don't try to manage what they have and carry with them, but we try to bring out the beauties of it. We try and bring out the gifts. And so what I want to do with you all right now is I'm going to invite you all, as I'm going to sing a song to kind of close my little speech here. And I want you all to close your eyes. Want you all to kind of just let yourself relax. And going to do this song for you guys. And as I'm going to sing this song, and while your eyes are closed, I want you all to think about what Mallory said in the beginning. What do you like about the mountains? think about a place that makes you happy. Think about that beautiful place that you like to go to in the mountains, and just think about that place, be in that place as I'm singing. Maybe think about the drive that you're taking to get to that place, that stop at Tim Hortons that you all make, to coffee up and get your donuts and continue on to that place. Think about all of the noise that you could hear, the birds, or if there's water around, or if it was windy that day. Just keep replaying that in your mind and try and be present in there as I sing this song. And this song that I'm going to sing is a song that I made with my partner Ariel, my wife, and we made this song for her video that you can see online, and it's made so that it can be shared through social media, through online platforms. And so you could find this song online as well if you want to continue to listen to it after today. But I call this song the power song, kind of to help you whenever you're feeling sad or whenever you're feeling happy. It's something to help you to move forward, but also to help you to celebrate during those good times. And so as I close here, I just wanted to check in with Mallory again. I know the question I usually ask to everyone is did you feel anything from that song? How did that song make you feel? And that's that feeling that you get from that music, from that relationship with me connecting with my drum, with that elk that spent many years on this land, is how I like to say is that's how we communicate today without using words with the land. We aren't as pure as we used to be, where we could have a conversation like we are right now, but there's those gifts that all of these animals, the land, the water, the trees have taught us a long time ago that we forget how to utilize that language. And so that feeling that you might have felt in this song, I like to say is a part of that language of connecting. So Mallory,
Thanks so much, Gerald. That was beautiful. I felt just like lightness in my chest. And of course, I went to Mount Assiniboine, the place behind me. Does anybody else from the student committee want to turn on their mic and share how they felt?
I just felt relaxed. Probably the most relaxed I felt all week.
Thanks for sharing, Ben. Lucas?
I don't know if this will make sense, but I almost felt powerless, like, or insignificant in a way. Just like, I don't know, that there was something bigger.
Would anybody from the other schools that are joining like to share with us?
I'd like to just say that I mentioned it in the chat, but I felt the pebbles of a riverbank. It just kind of made me think of kind of a happy place in the summertime. Some of the organizers might recognize that we go on canoe trips every year, and it just reminds me of those moments, sharing those moments with my family, with friends, and you know, with the place that we spend our time, which is often the Kootenay River.
Thanks for sharing, Sean. Amanda says, I can feel energy in my limbs sort of vibrating in a way. Where can we find this online? Daryl, feel free to drop the link to that in the chat, or I can send it out after the workshop as well. I think I could, I think we could all use playing that once a day. So thank you, Daryl, Ishnish, for sharing and bringing to light the Indigenous perspective and sharing with us the relationship to the bison. And thank you for everyone sharing your feelings. Teslin from Jasper says, I found a profound peace, like I was flying free. I went to Hidden Valley in the Fright Valley. And those are locations in Jasper. Thank you to everybody who shared. This has been really wonderful. Thank you, Daryl. So next slide, Alex. So everything, including the bison, has a role to play in land management. Our mountains are our water towers, our trees provide us oxygen and our carbon sinks. Wetlands provide flood services and homes for animals, and these places are therapeutic and bring us joy. Land management is all about reciprocity and balance, and Indigenous peoples were the first land managers. However, rather than dictating and dominating, their belief systems believe in harmony with the land. Thank you for sharing, Daryl. Now, Ben is going to introduce the Canadian Rockies Youth Network pillars, and these were created to help frame complex land management issues, and they were also built off of the 2019 Summit Report Concerns and Goals, along with current concerns of the students that are part of the Summit Committee. Ben.
Yes, thank you, Mallory. So Mallory already talked about land management. It's a very broad term, and it encompasses really just all decisions that we make that affects how we use our home. It affects both the short and long-term implications of the decisions, and it can really just affect many parts of our life. So last year when we made the report, we outlined our main concerns with the Rockies. And our student organizing team this year came up with the 4 main pillars that encompass land management. So as on the screen, you can see we have Indigenous knowledge, wildlife and biodiversity, sustainable development and recreation, and climate change. And we're also including watersheds inside of climate change. So our student body, our student organizing team is going to go through every pillar and just kind of give a brief overview, how it relates to Summit, how it relates to land management, and kind of issues that we're seeing in the Rockies with that pillar. So when you see these pillars, just think about how you see them in your hometown or I guess the place you love most, and see how that each pillar kind of affects your place positively or negatively. So without anything further to do, I'm going to introduce Ava, our Youth Outreach Coordinator.
Awesome. So hello again. Like I said before, I'm Ava Vanderbeek, and I'm here to introduce our first pillar, Indigenous Knowledge and Perspectives. So I'd like to share a little quote from the Canadian Rockies Youth Summit report in 2019. So that's, Indigenous groups should have more input in the management of these areas, especially protected areas like provincial and national parks. So the First Nations people have been the first to reside here in Canada and have been a key factor to the complex political and cultural systems developed here in Canada. The First Nations have systems in place to protect the surrounding environment, one being the 7 generations principle. When making a decision, the First Nations would ensure the land and their people would benefit from the changes made for up to 7 generations. They would contribute to ecosystems just as much as the surrounding wildlife. Aboriginal law and spirituality are intertwined with the land, the people, and creation. And this forms their culture and sovereignty. The health of the land and water is central for their culture. The land is steeped in their culture, but is also giving them a responsibility to take care of it. That entails giving back to the land and not exploiting resources. These are all elements that we need to integrate into our conservation and protecting of the land. Switch slides. Alex? As of now, Indigenous people are just starting to be recognized for their in-depth knowledge of the land. So big strides are being taken to reconcile with the First Nations, including the people to hunt and fish in Canada parks and for allowing access into the parks for free. But however, for years, First Nations have been pushed off their land and homes for the creation of those parks. The Aboriginal people were thought of lesser and are still being a source of environmental racism. However, these are all still problems. So one big problem is that 73% of First Nations water is at risk to medium or high contamination. And some of these people include the Tsuut'ina Nation Reserve, which is just outside of Calgary. Switch slide. As a Métis youth looking to rediscover my roots in the culture, I believe that it is high importance that we have more Indigenous knowledge available as a resource to youth all over Alberta and BC. As part of the Canadian Rockies Youth Network, we plan to strongly integrate Indigenous knowledge into the planning and demonstration of the summit and workshops. We hope for the Aboriginal voices to be heard and considered as much as youth voices in terms of conservation issues and knowledge of the Rocky Mountains. A youth voice is not complete without Indigenous perspectives. A network driving towards a better environment and consultation system, we hope to have Indigenous views as part of environmental conservations. Indigenous justice is environmental justice. So as Dale Kootenay said in our last workshop and this workshop, Indigenous relations are closely intertwined with wildlife. So next up, we have Lucas Braun, our co-director of the network, introducing our second pillar, wildlife and diversity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ava. That was very powerful, very great introduction. Hi, my name is Lucas Braun. I'm a grade 12 student from Calgary. Alex, if you would like to go to the next slide there, awesome. So yes, I'm presenting wildlife and biodiversity. So wildlife that once made its home in the prairie now only exists in fragmented portions of mountain regions. These areas are only marginally habitable for many of these species, like the grizzly bear. More protected areas should be established that connect mountain ecosystems to the prairie for the sake of these species' survival. And that's from our 2019 Youth Summit report. So after watching workshop 1, if you did, Canadian Rockies, A Sense of Place, you should understand the concepts of wildlife and biodiversity. Biodiversity is the measure of the health of an ecosystem by the variety of species that are able to survive in said ecosystem. The more diverse an ecosystem is, the more resilient it is. Next slide. So what are the Canadian Rockies without the animals that call them home? Whether it's a grizzly bear, a wolf, a chipmunk, wolverine, or elk, the animals of the Canadian Rockies have cemented themselves in the collective imaginations of its residents. These animals have obtained a near mythical status. They belong to the Rockies, and the Rockies belong to them. Yet the truth of the matter is largely different than this myth. Most species in the Rockies face challenges and barriers to their survival and find themselves in contact with humans at every turn. The chipmunk is habituated to humans due to exposure to high-calorie rich human food. This alters their natural behavior, leading to codependence on humans. Caribou are threatened by human activities such as recreation like ski touring or industry like geological surveying, which can open up paths to their concealed habitat, which predators in turn can follow. Wolves can be boxed in within parks by human contact, as dispersing wolves are often killed off by ranchers or traffic collisions. Other species that now call the Rockies home weren't even originally from the Rockies, but were forced here through human expansion, like farming, ranching, and other early colonial settlements. Grizzly bears are one such species, and they continue to be squeezed further and further away from their ideal habitat on the prairies. Next slide. The myth the myth states that animals rule the parks, but the reality is the opposite. The myth states that the parks are the last vestiges of wilderness, but the reality again shows this to be a lie. Throughout these workshops and the approaching summit, I challenge you to examine your own interpretations of biodiversity in the Rockies. Examine conservation and development of the parks not as separate and opposing practices, but one and the same. Recognize humanity's impact within the park and reject this idea of pure wilderness. It doesn't exist. Learn from those who have lived in coexistence with these species for hundreds of years, thousands of years, and incorporate traditional indigenous knowledge into your work in the future. If we plan to meaningfully manage conservation of wildlife, we need to drop these misconceptions and myths we have about animals and address their reality in the Canadian Rockies. Next up is Alexander Stratmone, our logistical coordinator, to present our climate change pillar.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Alex?
Yeah, sorry. Hi, can you guys hear me now?
I can, but we just can't see your video. Oh, there you go.
Sorry,
awesome.
Yeah, it kind of acts up weird. Anyway, so hello everyone. Today, I wanted to talk to you about one of the pillars of the summit that's really important to me, climate change. So in our original report, we didn't touch much on climate change, but we stated that in one sentence, climate change will see an end to most alpine glaciers within our lifetime, and that all students should have the opportunity to see and learn about them before they're gone. Now, this is a sad reality of our current situation, and it identifies how close to home climate issues really are. In my eyes, climate is one of the largest issues facing our world right now, and I think it's really important that youth are involved in it. And what's amazing is that through the work of school walkouts, people like Greta Thunberg, and even organizations like our network, youth are starting to realize that this is the issue our generation will be tasked with, and we're already stepping up to the plate to fight it. It really shows how much we can accomplish together, and it gives me great hope for the future of the summit. However, we still have a long way to go. Climate change, in my eyes, is like a ticking time bomb. We're edging closer and closer to disaster. I don't want to be pessimistic here, but if the world warms up past 2 degrees, we're headed for irreversible change. This change will be directly affecting the Canadian Rockies. Our ecosystem is quite delicate to temperature changes here, and despite 2 degrees seeming minuscule, we'll be dealing with irreversible changes to the Rockies due to what's called positive feedback loops. I mean, for example, if you look at the wildfires that occurred last year and some of the massive smoke, that smoke that's burning is just furthering climate change by creating more emissions. These extreme weather patterns are going to continue to increase in frequency and severity. For example, floods, wildfires, and these are going to have massive impacts on our watersheds. We're even looking at decreased snowpacks and receding glaciers, which will be leading to more flooding. So this has tons of adverse effects on the wildlife that calls these areas home, as well as us, the humans that are trying to coexist and live with them. And here at home, these issues will also have a massive impact on many cultures, including our indigenous cultures, and frankly, all of us, because our connection to the land is so important. And this is something that gets disturbed when that connection is frankly removed. So as we look at this graph in the bottom here, this shows how close we are to disaster. That even if we stay at the very bottom of our projections, there's only a 5% chance of us being able to avoid this warming by 2 degrees that will bring all these massive changes. And if you look at the higher points, there's a much higher chance of us going totally off straight and completely changing our ecosystem. But I don't just want this presentation to be about how bad the situation is. I wanted to end this on a more positive note. See, I'm interested in climate change because I think it's an issue we can fight, and an issue that we have the power to fight right now. Lowering greenhouse gas is not just about using less energy. Other ways to fight climate change include technological advances like geothermal heating, electrical cars. We can lobby the governments to change policies, start community-led green initiatives. Have you heard of the amazing tree or plants as carbon capture devices? Throughout the summit, we'll be looking at the impacts of climate change, but also we'll be looking at the solutions to climate change. However, bringing it back to impacts, the most obvious example, like we stated at the beginning, of how it's affecting is our climate change is affecting us is our year-round impact on glaciers melting, which is why I think it's important that I bring the mic over to Thomas, who's going to be talking about our watersheds.
Hi, hello, or oops. Hello, I am Thomas Maloney, a Calgary grade 11 student, and I'm here to talk about our Rocky Mountain watershed. So the watershed includes all parts of the water, our raging rivers to our beautiful like water, I think they call them like water sinks, like our freshwater glaciers. In our 2019 summit report, we did not highlight watersheds, but the current coal mining policy has highlighted the need to protect the headwaters of Alberta's 5 major water basins. So do you guys know where our fresh water comes from? Like other than the Glenmore Reservoir, like where does the water come from there?
Feel free to type it into the chat if you know where your headwaters are.
Yeah, they're in the Rocky Mountains. I don't know the exact location, but they come from the I think it's the Elbow River. All Canadian students should learn more about their natural areas, including the Rocky Mountains, and education should be a priority for management. So this is a photo of, sorry, next slide, I think. Yeah. Oh, no, sorry, this is the right slide. So this picture here is a picture of oh my God. This is a picture of a watershed. Yeah, that major glacier there is storing a lot of the fresh water for, so water is key for survival. These environments are key to the health of our mountain flora and fauna, as well as everything living downstream. Our watersheds are also an amazing location for recreation, such as being used by kayakers, canoers, and many more. It also brings us millions of dollars in tourist revenue, and when used responsibly, can be a profitable industry for many years to come. But some industrial pursuits, such as resource extraction, can pose significant risk for the headwaters of our major watersheds. So the current biggest risk is the coal development policy, which prevents coal mining in the Rockies, and they were thinking about removing it. Luckily, they decided not to remove the policy because it's very crucial for keeping those headwaters safe. So yeah, the Grassy Mountain Coal Project. If the project were to go ahead, it risks fish who require clean, clear, unpolluted water, because a lot of these fish, like bull trout, are very sensitive and they can only live in really cold waters. And if anything were to contaminate them, some of these species could become extinct in these regions. Communities also downstream might suffer, like such as Calgary. Like if we are, exposing our headwaters to these toxins, what's going to happen to us who are drinking it downstream? Our Canadian Rockies watershed is critically important to our local species. It helps define us, but is under threat and needs our help to keep it safe and healthy.
And now we're going to pass the mic over to Liam Hunter as he kind of brings all of these issues together and talks about sustainability. So that's where we come in. Thanks, Thomas.
You're welcome.
So, hello, my name is Liam Hunter. I'm a grade 11 student from Calgary, and I'm going to be talking about one of our keystone pillars, sustainability. So what is sustainability and/or sustainable development, and how does it affect our beautiful Canadian Rocky Mountains? So in our 2019 Canadian Rockies Summit report, we stated that industry must work closely with stakeholders to create a shared vision of sustainability in these areas. Science and traditional knowledge must guide this work. So when we think of sustainability, we can think of Indigenous land management. As Daryl Kootenay highlighted, each part of the Canadian Rockies has a role to play. Animals, flora and fauna, watersheds, etc. Sustainability is not about the reciprocity and working alongside our wildlife and instead of dominating it. First Nations typically think 7 generations into the future when making decisions. They ask how this will affect 7 of their relatives' generations in the future and the past. So next slide, please, Alex. So that's the same idea behind this wordy and boring Encyclopedia Pretensia definition of sustainable development. So understood as a form of intergenerational ethics in which the environmental and economic actions taken by present persons do not diminish the opportunities of future persons to enjoy similar levels of wealth, utility, or welfare. Sustainability has been a reoccurring topic of discussion in relation to the Canadian Rockies, and that is simply because there's money to be made in the Rockies. Hundreds of the sustainability issues present themselves to us on a daily basis, such as wildlife protection, tourism management, and green energy consumption. So sustainable development is about finding the balance on topics such as the Alberta government wanting to double tourism in Banff and Jasper and the rest of the Alberta Rockies by 2030. Next slide, please, Alex. So in recent years, Banff finds itself having 4 to 5 million tourists annually. Doubled, Banff could be seeing upwards of 10 million tourists every year. So it is important to ensure that businesses that thrive off of tourism, like guiding, restaurants, and others, have a supportive stream of customers while also ensuring future generations can explore and enjoy the Rockies. So some specific examples include restaurants in Banff composting, providing tourists with public transportation to visit Lake Louise and other mountain resorts, outhouses and recreation facilities with solar panels and passive energy saving mechanisms. So sustainable development also considers topics like open pit coal mining. Do we not have ways of harnessing energy that don't require us to shave off bits of a mountain to extract coal and burn a substance that is one of the leading causes of greenhouse gases? It is important to solve these, or it is impossible to solve these problems in a 2-minute speech, but solutions like renewable energy and more protected areas would help. These are not the only issues, but the underlying message is that we follow the 7th generation principle to ensure the health of the Canadian Rockies.
Okay, great. So we are going to go into, here's our pillars again. We're going to quickly break up into breakout groups now, just for a 5-minute quick activity about the pillars. So we're
and
gonna
if Alex, if you can go to the next slide.
Oh, that would be great.
I'm just creating the breakaway groups right now.
Awesome. So what everybody's going to do is in the breakout groups, you can talk, you can turn on your cameras because we won't be recording them. So we're just going to brainstorm the issues connected to your pillar, choose one issue, and then brainstorm solutions to that specific issue and kind of summarize the issue, how it connects to the pillar you were assigned, and share the solution you came up. We'll take hopefully just about 5 minutes, maybe a little bit more because we're a little bit behind on schedule.
Perfect. I'm going to open up all the breakaway groups and there'll be a 1-minute warning when it's time to come back. The student reps will be jumping into those breakaway groups, and so they can present your results if we have a bit of time. Okay, awesome. Let's do it.
Hi there, guys. Who do we have in this breakout room? So feel free to just, wait, am I on the right one?
You're in the right place, Ava.
Okay, good. Sorry, I was just like a little confused. Okay, so you guys can feel free to turn on your camera and to turn on your mic, just because this is not being recorded. So let's just brainstorm some sort of issues that we have that relate to Indigenous perspectives for the Canadian Rockies.
Check. And hello everyone who's joining us from our live stream. I'm going to be hopping back. I'm just making this message to show you guys. We are right now in breakout rooms, but we will be heading back in about 10 minutes to our main live stream, and then this live stream will return. We'll just put on some music and throw up the slide for that time, but we will be heading back to more presentations soon. Thanks so much for coming with us. If you guys have any questions, put them in the chat down below, and I'll try to answer them throughout while I'm attending one of the breakout sessions. So thanks, guys. See you all then. Hello all, and we're back. So we're coming back and we're going there now.
Okay, should we do this really quickly or should we?
I think that we do have time to do a little bit of sharing. I guess I'll just open the floor to our student reps that have hopefully written down a little blurb. Does anybody want to share? Ava wants to share. Perfect. I am going to pin her and add a spotlight to Ava.
So we didn't really have enough time to write it down, but we just sort of talked about how we think that more Indigenous voices and knowledge should be integrated into the curriculum. And so we talked about different action projects, especially at the Louis Riel School. They have a ton of action projects that revolve around conservation issues and Indigenous knowledge, which I think is great. And so I think more schools should do that. And I was talking to Cheryl at the end there, and she said that it would be really a good idea to have more youth educate higher ups and decision makers on these sort of things, and also Indigenous people as well. So just more educating opportunities. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Ava. Anybody else would like to share?
Thomas and I were doing watersheds. And I guess the two main things we talked about were the coal mine, and Thomas, you can pop in whenever you want. We talked about the coal mine policy that recently changed, and just kind of how, I guess, our main solution to that was protests and just kind of public outcry against the coal mines. And it was surprisingly effective. One thing we kind of talked about was how when people have a certain resource or a certain thing in their life, this case it was water, and in the Alberta Parks protest it was parks and recreation, and then they got it taken away from them, they kind of lose that, and people really notice that when they lose this piece of their life. So we saw a big outcry there, and it worked. It helped the government kind of take a step back and reevaluate the decision.
Fabulous. Thanks for sharing. Lucas, you had your hand up. You said that you wanted to share, so why don't you take it over?
Yeah, our group talked a lot about, I guess, wildlife. We had some students from Canmore that just kind of talked about the level of ignorance or apathy that exists locally where they are, specifically with how humans interact in bear country and how some of their practices aren't really taking wildlife into account. And we kind of theorize that this just stems from a belief that humans view themselves as separate from wildlife. They view themselves as like a separate entity entirely. And when we kind of identified some solutions to that problem, the main one we looked at was education. In the time we had, the main one we looked at was education in a way that doesn't just teach the new generation, but also alters the misconceptions that older generations may have. So in a way that allows them to stop their bad habits and interact with wildlife much more sustainably. So
thanks for sharing, Lucas. I think that we should wrap things up unless Liam wanted to chat a bit about sustainability. I know he was late to jump into the chat.
Yeah, I can talk about it. We just talked about how it's such a big, complex issue, and there's no one-word answer to solve the protection of our Rockies, really. But it's so complex, and it's anything from tourism to ski hill parking lot development to wildlife protection to watersheds protection. And it's about finding that balance, especially in aspects of tourism and stuff like that, because we want to enjoy our Rockies and we want to go explore and enjoy them, but we also want to preserve them for future generations. Yeah.
Thank you so much,
yeah,
Liam.
And Mallory, I was just going to mention from the chat there from our group, a couple of solutions would be things like uninvasive tourist attractions or more sustainable tourism. things like public transit instead of people driving all their own cars, going to places, unobtrusive buildings, that sort of thing, were some suggestions given as solutions from our group.
Fabulous. Yeah, and then Alex said for climate change, we were looking at a variety of problems that's causing, in particular, warmer water and the impact it has on native species. We also have more efficient ski hills. So I'll allow you, if you're feeling inspired for like a little bit of an action project pitch, feel free to drop that in the chat. Or if you feel inspired by any of these pillars and you feel like you do have a solution to an issue that they're facing, feel free to just email us and we can get you started on an action project, because that is one of the goals of the Canadian Rockies Youth Network. So without any further ado, we have Vanessa joining us from CPAWS. If you want to change the slide, Alex, that would be fabulous. You can just pin Vanessa as well. I'm going to add a spotlight onto Vanessa. And Ben is going to introduce Vanessa here today.
Yeah, so this is our last speaker of the day, and Vanessa Billen. So Vanessa is an environmental educator from the Southern chapter of the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society, also known as CPAWS. She's majored in ecotourism and outdoor leadership, and she specializes in engaging youth and adults in environmental education through various outdoor education programs. Vanessa cares about the Rockies because of the many fond memories it holds for her. She has grown up hiking, skiing, and camping throughout this place. And she hopes to spark this type of memory in her 10-year-old son, Noah, so he too can use the Rockies as a place to enjoy and feel comfortable. So I'll pass on to Vanessa now. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here. I will share my screen if that's possible right now.
Yeah, that should be possible. Go ahead.
Perfect. Awesome. So I'm here on behalf of CPAWS, and CPAWS was founded in 1963 as a not-for-profit organization and a registered charity, and we have 13 chapters across Canada. We are a key citizens group in many decisions relating to the establishment of new parks and wilderness areas in all of Canada. Specifically, my Southern Alberta branch was founded in 1967 in response to commercial development pressures in Banff National Park. Locally, we've been involved in the creation of Fish Creek, Nose Hill, Elbow Sheep Wildland, and Bow Valley Wildland Provincial Parks, as well as the Castle Wildland Provincial Parks. And in our organization, we do both conservation as well as education work. We provide award-winning environmental education programs for both adults and youth in Southern Alberta. And we, since 1997, have engaged over 150,000 Albertas. Our most popular experiences are curriculum-linked classroom programs and guided interpretive hikes and snowshoes for grades 2 to 12. At CPAWS, how we work is a great part of our success. Specifically, we look at the larger landscape and use science to support and provide advice to champion conservation. We promote awareness and understanding of ecological principles and the inherent value of wilderness. We work with government, First Nations, business, and other organizations and individuals looking to create conservation solutions. As well, we encourage individual action to accomplish these goals. So we encourage advocacy for all Southern Albertans. CPAWS is a major stakeholder for conservation in Southern Alberta, but also Canada. And today we're going to be talking a little bit more about land management. So to give a quick definition, land management is the process of managing the use and development of land resources such as forests, minerals, and oil and gas, etc. Landscapes and ecosystems vary greatly throughout Southern Alberta, which means land uses and management strategies must change accordingly. Land use planning must take into account both the diversity of ecological conditions and the need for these. We believe that through proper land use planning, we can make necessary trade-offs with industry and still protect our ecological and cultural heritage. CPAWS has been a huge stakeholder in the creation of parks and land use planning in Southern Alberta. One of our successes was in the Castle. A previous success of CPAWS was the instatement of the Castle Wildland and Provincial Parks. Some of you may know where this is or have visited it. It is a very beautiful area. And the reason it needed to be protected is because it is a water tower or headwaters for much of Southern Alberta, providing 1/3 of all the water in the Oldman watershed. It also has profound cultural and sacred value for the Niitsitapi, Piikani, Siksikaana, and Blackfeet First Nations, as well as the Nakota Stoney and Ktunaxa First Nations. It's home to over 120 provincially rare plant species and 59 species of mammals. So it is very high in biodiversity. It's critical wildlife corridor for many wide-ranging mammals and animals, as well as provides lots of great opportunities for humans to recreate. But definitely when we connect it to climate, it is internationally recognized as an area that is critically important to ensure human and wildlife communities can successfully adapt to the impacts of climate change that we are going to be seeing in the future. So it was a really important area, and unfortunately it was being mismanaged or misused. Much of the Castle area was wilderness, but some places were really heavily damaged due to the mass effects of oil and gas, forestry, grazing, and off-highway vehicle use. The impacts of these activities were really impacting the species at risk in the area, such as grizzly bears, cutthroat trout, as well as bull trout. So CPAWS was stepping in and we were a voice for this area. We worked in the Castle for many years and had many successes, such as preventing logging in the area. And with consultation with the government in 2015, the government did announce it planned to protect the Castle as a wildland and provincial park. Now, this was an integral step to preserving clean water for downstream communities, safeguarding the province's biodiversity, and provide habitat to important wildlife in the area. Then in 2017, the government made good on its promise and the Castle Provincial Park was created, and the Castle Wildland Provincial Park or Provincial Recreation Area was expanded. In 2018, they decided to release a management plan, which was going to prioritize nature and phase out off-highway vehicle use by 2021, which is this year. Off-highway vehicle users were a very huge stakeholder and a very big voice that did not want this area to be protected because it would remove their rights as off-highway vehicle users to use the area. But usually as a provincial park, those activities would not be allowed. But the government did create an advisory panel to inform the land management plan of this area, both the provincial park and wildland. And through some of CPAWS's connections, we have heard that they actually may plan to allow off-highway vehicle use in the wildland area and provincial park, which is a very scary precedent that the Alberta government will be making, which could potentially open the doors for off-highway vehicle use in other provincial parks in the province of Alberta and other parks. So the announcement of this land management plan is expected to come this year. So I would ask you guys to all keep your ears to the news and to listen for the announcement of the land management plan for the Castle area to see if off-highway vehicles will be incorporated. This is an important case study because it shows that protecting a place is only half the battle, and the land management plans for certain areas can have a huge impact and will really dictate whether or not a protection such as provincial park label means anything to the ecological integrity and future of an area. Now to a current battle. Some of you have already mentioned, I hear the coal, you've talked about the coal policy and the current coal campaign that CPAWS is running. So perhaps you don't know a whole lot about it, but to give you a brief overview, in June of last year, the government of Alberta rescinded the coal policy without consultation of Albertans. Now, the government of Alberta's process in rescinding the coal policy last year also revealed some serious concerns with transparency from our provincial government, and we, CPAWS and Southern Albertans will be expecting much greater transparency going forward. Shortly after they rescinded the policy, they did accept coal mining applications to dig for metallurgical coal, I believe I said that right, through open pit coal mines. Now, this type of coal is used for making steel. It is not necessarily thermal coal. However, the climate impact of, I guess, extracting this resource, transporting this resource, and also manufacturing it is quite significant. Open pit coal mines are the method involved in removing mountaintops and terracing the sides of these mountaintops areas. It's an open pit, pretty much. They remove the top dirt. They do not create tunnels. It is clear that the coal mining companies knew about the removal of the coal policy prior to Albertans, which allowed them to submit their applications before the coal policy was actually rescinded. Companies don't go through this application process because it is quite lengthy if they cannot proceed with it, if they don't kind of have a guarantee that they will be accepted. And CPAWS is pretty upset. So immediately we began to campaign against the action, against this action, because the environmental significance of the Southern Rockies is quite high, from the water to the essential habitat for various flora and fauna, as well as the impact it'll have on local First Nations, and the fact that local First Nations were not necessarily consulted in regards to these decisions while they live very close to the area, as well as the area has unsurpassed beauty, refuge, and we want to protect it for generations to come. And these are all important things, and they are all at risk if these coal mines do go forward. The important ecosystem services this region provides will be compromised should the mines go unchallenged. So decreased water quality, decreased water quantity, loss of habitat, climate change impacts, as well as human health impacts. We believe the future of the southern eastern slopes belongs to those who cherish the landscape and cherish and protect clean water, abundant fish and wildlife, outdoor adventure, and the sustainable economy it supports. Its fate should not be determined by those looking to exploit and sacrifice this land simply for limited, short-term, and fairly uncertain financial benefits. As well, our partners, the Nistapi Water Protectors, created this lovely infographic slide talking about the impacts that they will face, many of which we have already discussed. However, they also are facing impacts such as decreased safety, decreased livelihood, and impacts on their health and wellness as a result of the coal mines. Specifically, they could be looking at water quality and quantity, as we discussed, as well as pollutants in the air, which will be blown as a result of the open pit coal mines, the dust and the pollutions that it carries. So despite the reinstatement of Alberta's coal policy in February, significant damage has already been done and has not been reversed since the coal policy was canceled without public consultation last year. Coal exploration activities have been the main culprit, with hundreds of kilometers of new roads and test drill pits significantly disrupting wildlife habitat, scenic views, and potentially water sources. So our teams at CPAWS Southern and Northern Alberta will continue to look into the impacts. Going forward, our teams hope to see improved transparency from the Alberta government, so Albertans such as you can understand any new policy being proposed, provide the proper feedback, which they are currently in the process of looking at. They are opening for consultation and feedback on the reinstatement of the coal policy, and have that feedback taken properly and rigorously into account. It is crucial we stand up now to make sure mining projects across the eastern slopes that easily passed through early stages of exploration approval last year cannot continue its activities this year, and no new mines are approved in the Alberta Rockies. It would, if you would like to know more about how you can take action, have your input in regards to the coal policy, I highly recommend you go to cpawsouthernalberta.org. Our Take Action page has a ton of options, as well as a pre-scripted email to government officials voicing your concerns regarding this issue and calling for a full stop and inquiry. Likewise, if you are already taking action, I highly recommend you sign up for CPAWS's Alberta Youth Contest, the Action Challenge, where youth classrooms, clubs, and teams can register and complete environmentally motivated actions such as a letter writing campaign to the government, composting, or even attending this youth summit also counts as an action. For each action that you submit, you earn points, and the team at the end who has the most points wins between $300 and $500. This prize amount will go towards another conservation initiative or action type thing. So for instance, some classrooms have won and they've created a garden outside of their school. An individual who is 10 years old won, and he bought camping for his parents and his family over the summer, as well as a pass to the Calgary Zoo, like a yearly membership. That's what it's called, yearly membership. So I highly recommend you go to actionchallenge.ca. I will be putting some links into the chat in a moment here to reference all the sites that I have just quoted. Yeah, so I know I didn't give you a very deep, in-depth look at the coal policy and the campaign. However, it is very important. And if you want more information, please visit our website. And if you are interested and want to support CPAWS's work, I highly recommend you donate. We are a not-for-profit and a registered charity, and every contribution you help to us helps the wildlife in not just Southern Alberta, but also Canada. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. We really appreciate understanding the conservation-based perspective and organization that is giving voices to those that do not have them, such as the animals, our land, our watersheds, basically our pillars. Alex, if you could bring up the slides, we're going to do a very short breakaway session. We have a couple questions that Vanessa posed at the very end. I just want you to just start chatting about your feelings. I'm just going to throw you in those breakaway groups without the questions, just kind of like, how do you think you can empower youth voices? So I'm going to put you in the same breakaway groups. We're going to have a couple minutes and hopefully we'll have a couple moments to at least share in the chat so that we have a dialogue going. I'm going to open up those breakaway groups.
Hello all. Hello again. We're again in breakaway groups quickly. We'll be back shortly. Maybe go grab like a snack or something. We only have like a few minutes left of this presentation, so we'll probably be back in about a minute. But we'll see you then. Have a great life. Bye.
I love you. I love you, yeah.
Hello, welcome back, everybody. Sorry that breakaway discussion had to be so short. If anybody wants to share, put up your hand right now. I'll have one or two of you share just to wrap things up. Adam, I know you want to share.
I always want to share. Yeah, totally. No, we just mentioned that the ultimate goal of this entire workshop and of the summit and bringing youth together to talk about these issues is so that in the future, youth will actually have a seat at the table when it comes to decision making and management plans for how to decide the future of the Rockies. And so we were talking about what is the best way after learning about all these things to ensure that that happens. And I think going forward, we need to have representation from those governing bodies take part in these workshops and take part in the summit and hear the conversations and hear from youth directly. And I think once they hear that youth are interested in these topics, that they would sort of change their practice to include youth more often. So I just think going forward, we need them in these conversations more directly.
And that is absolutely right, Adam. So we've heard the Indigenous knowledge perspective, we've heard the youth perspective and the conservation perspective that's closely aligned with our values as a network, the Canadian Rockies Youth Network. Moving forward, we are going to be talking about the stakeholders. So we're going to be transitioning. The next workshop is going to be coming up on April 15th, and it is going to include a land manager from Canon T6i, as well as the environment and sustainability manager, Michael Hayes, from the town of Banff. So that is our ultimate goal. These workshops are building on one another, and they're designed to prepare students, but also engage them with their larger community at whole. We have 3 central goals as a network: educate youth, elevate youth voices, and encourage youth to take action. If this inspired you and you already want to get started on an action project, feel free to email me. I put that in the link. And then also join our mighty network so that you're able to keep having these discussions. We didn't have much time to talk about how that you can elevate your voices within the government, and so we'll provide more of those discussion opportunities in the Mighty Network. I'm going to get Alex to drop that link into the chat as well, and your teacher may have already gotten the link, so we'll email links out for that as well. Concluding and wrapping things up, Alex, can you just go to the slide previous to this one? We want youth as stakeholders, and in our 2019 summit report, we believe youth are worried about the increasing pressures of human activities on some sensitive ecosystems, both protected and unprotected. Youth want to be meaningfully engaged in decision-making regarding these ecosystems, and youth want to be more involved in the management of these areas regardless of jurisdiction. So by being a part of this workshop, you are being a part of this youth engagement. process. The idea behind Ben starting the summit was to elevate youth voices and kind of get people to listen. So I think that we're achieving that here today. Thank you all for sharing. And if you have any questions or want to stick around, I know that class is dismissed, so I will just stick around if you want to chat a little bit more with myself, or if you have any lingering questions. I'm going to drop our Instagram and our email again into the chat so you can get connected with us.
And also I'll quickly add, if you have any other feedback that you'd like to kind of add on to make our workshops better, we're really open to that, because this is, of course, really new this year. So
yeah, we are co-designing it.
Yeah.
So every session we're learning a little bit more and getting a bit better with the technology, or at least I am.
Great. Thank you everybody for coming. It was a great workshop. Woohoo!
Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate you joining us today. And if you are a youth that wants to be a youth rep, feel free to join us this afternoon at 3:30. We're going to have a little bit of a youth rep chat, and you can find more opportunities for involvement. Bye, Caitlin. Bye, Nick, Nico, Teslin, Aria. Thank you.